Hello, today is July 31st, 2020. I'm Michael Walsh. I work at the Yonkers Public Library. I'm currently in Yonkers right now. I'm with Ruth Kambar, who's a representative of the Assyrian Studies Association. She's an oral historian and archivist. We are here with George Farad.
Porhat.
Before Porhat, excuse me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Before proceeding with the interview, George, could you just state your name and
Yes, my name is George Joseph Porhat. We live in Modesto, California. And you need to know how long?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So I've been in California since 1946. So previously it was New Jersey, moving from Yonkers. So you have questions, we'll go from the beginning and go through whatever we need here.
Okay.
okay. Thanks, George. George, do you give us permission to make this interview available to the Yonkers Public Library and also the Assyrian Studies Association and the Library of Congress?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, as long as it doesn't cost me anything. You always ask for donations. Okay, sense of humor.
George, where and when did you grow up?
I grew up in Yonkers, New York, and was born June 16th, 1924. And we lived on Prospect Street. If I remember correctly, I think the number was 39 Prospect Street. And that's where we grew up, and that's where I went to school in school number 19. And I was not too far from where we lived. And so now I asked Ruth a question.
Sure.
Do you?
Let them ask you questions.
Okay,
No,
go
no,
ahead.
it's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, do you remember some of the streets over there from Prospect and around that area?
Yes.
I think our school was not too far from where we live. And then there was a street that ran alongside the school down. And if I remember correctly, there was a bakery down there that they had horse-drawn deliveries. Does that sound familiar to you?
Well, horse-drawn deliveries are before me, so I'm not 100% sure. But
Okay.
we did have a woman named Alice David who spoke about different bakeries that she remembered in Yonkers. So,
Yeah, I was trying to think of the street.
Riverdale Avenue?
No, that wasn't on Riverdale. It was further over.
Okay.
Clinton Street comes to mind,
I know where.
but I don't know what the location of Clinton was.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not 100%. So I grew up in Rumsey Road, Park Hill, but my mom grew up down by the station by Ludlow.
Oh, look, that's where the trolley cars ended up in the barn.
Yeah.
That's where they. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, I have a story about that too later.
Okay. We look forward to it.
All right, excuse me, Michael.
Yeah, so George, who lived in your home with you? Do you
Hi.
have any siblings?
Yeah, my mother, my father, and my sister. I only had one sister. I had a brother, Joseph, but he passed away when he was 6 months old. And so, yeah, it was just the two of us. And we lived in Yonkers for quite a while.
Really? How long did you live there?
Well, I lived there until I was 17 because I was going to Saunders Trade School. And see, was that on Broadway?
It was at one point, yes.
Yeah. And that kind of
Yeah.
rings a bell. But anyhow, we moved from Yonkers in May of that year when I was 17. So that would be 1941, I presume. And we moved to New Jersey on a farm and bought, I think it was 14 acres there. And it was a little town of, they call Locktown. And that was about 9 miles out of Flemington, New Jersey. And Flemington was known for its furs and all that, and also the Lindbergh case, if you remember the capture of the Lindbergh child. And so, yeah, and then I worked on a farm, and I was working on a farm over there until I was inducted in the Army in 1943 and served from 43 to 46. So after I got out of the Army, we moved out here to California only because my sister was married to, in a way, her father-in-law was somehow related to my father, I believe. And they had a big ranch. And during the summers, we always used to come after school and go out there for a couple of weeks for vacation. And so over the years, we developed a good rapport. And so when we were about ready to move from New Jersey to California, they were already out here in Turlock. So that's where we also came to Turlock and purchased a 10-acre farm ranch. And they call them ranches out here, farms back home. And so we raised chickens, and we had about 10,000 chickens. And we had in New Jersey, we had an egg route as well. We used to deliver eggs and so on and so forth to Trenton, New Jersey, and all that area. And over the weekend, we'd stay there, and that's how we made our living. So, basic.
Can I also clarify that the summers that you would spend was in New Jersey? When you were living in Yonkers, you'd spend summers.
Yeah, we were, when we lived in Yonkers and went to New Jersey during a vacation, school was out, and we probably were probably in anywhere in the range around 10 years old, somewhere in that one. So my sister was 2 years older than I. She was born on June 18th, 2 days after me, but she was 2 years older and I was 2 days older. So for the most part, yeah, we spent our vacations and there with them and did a lot of things on the farm. And I remember years that when they planted corn because they had cows as well and chicken feed, and they used to grind their own corn cobs from the cornfields for the feed for the chickens. And we used to go out there into the field because Uncle Alec would plant cucumbers. So we'd go out there, and my brother-in-law, Frank, and he had a twin brother named Bill, and another brother named Alec. who was the oldest one. And we used to go out to the field there and find a cucumber and just wipe it off and start eating the cucumber on the way back. And so, yeah, we did a lot of nice things there during the summers. And we spent quite a few summers out there, just about every year. So, yeah. And so, is there any other questions, Michael?
Oh, yeah. Were there places in Yonkers that you went to a lot with your family?
Yeah, we used to go like Tibbetts Brook Park. We'd go over there and have picnics, and they had this one area where the kids would go in the shallow with the sprinklers going, and they had one end of the pool was like 3 feet. The other end of the pool was, I think, 5 or 8 feet. I'm not sure. And the experience I had there, I walked down to the deep end of the swimming pool, and I saw this young man diving in and coming up and swimming around. I said to myself, hey, that looks pretty easy. I think I'm going to try that. So I dove in, didn't know how to swim. And he saw me bobbling around, and he grabbed a hold of me and took me out of the pool. And he says, what are you doing here? You don't know how to swim? I says, no, but it looks so easy. And he says, you go down to the other end of the pool over there in that shallow area. And strangely enough, his name was George as well. So, yeah. So he saved my life, and for what it is. And yeah, and then my father didn't, excuse me, he didn't know how to drive. So he bought a car, and I want to say it was Austin. I'm not quite sure. But anyhow, he bought a car, and he had this young man by the name of Eddie. He was Polish, and he drove the car. He drove us around wherever we wanted to go. And that's when we go to Tibbetts and different places to enjoy the day, the Sunday weekend or whatever. And yeah.
Which schools did you go to in Yonkers?
No, well, number 19, and I can't for the like of me remember if I went all the way through grades there at 19 before I went to Saunders Trade School. And
I bet you went to Hawthorne Middle School.
there you go. It was Hawthorne.
Yeah.
It certainly was. Yeah.
George, you're the same age as my dad, and
Oh,
he
really?
went to Hawthorne with you. William Cambar. They lived on Grosjean Avenue.
Grosjean, was that off of Harriet?
Yes,
Right off up the hill?
yes.
See, we lived on
Do
Harriet.
you remember him?
What was the last name?
Cambar. He had a
With a K?
yes. He had a brother Kenny and a brother Bobby Robert. Cambar. My grandfather was Yonan, and Emma was my grandmother.
Oh, Yonans?
Yeah, Yonan Cambar.
Oh,
With Ratto family in a building. Do you know the Hezratos? Do you remember Hezrato?
Ezerado?
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
the
Serious.
name rings a bell, but I can't put a face to it.
Yeah.
Where did they live?
On Grosjean. They lived on Grosjean. And
Okay,
Bunaville.
Grosjean was around the corner from Harriet. And was it a dead end as well?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it
It
was.
seems to me it was
Okay.
like a cul-de-sac. But we lived on the lower part of Harriet, near Riverdale, and then later on moved on up the hill on Harriet, not too far from Grosjean. But one of my best buddies, Bert was his name. It was a young black kid, and we were just buddies, you know.
Yeah.
We went to school together and had a lot of fun, and did a lot of crazy things on Harriet during the winter time. When it snowed, we used to take our sleighs, and you know the trolley car runs on Riverdale, right?
Right.
And runs all the way down to the barn. But I'd hop on the back of the trolleys lots of times and hook a ride, hang on to the big light, and then when it stopped, I'd jump off. But one of the craziest things I think we were doing was to time ourselves with the sleighs, and as the trolley went by, we'd go down the hill and slide under the trolley cars. That was one of the craziest things. Other than that, we used to do other little things like on roller skates. There was the grocery stores they used to have all their fruit and everything else all piled up on outside, and we used to swing on by on roller skates and grab an apple or something.
I told him I can't imagine what it was like to be his mother.
Yeah, and another crazy thing I did when we were about 8 years old, this buddy of mine, Joey, we were neighbors. We decided to go down to Hudson River, and they used to have coal barges down there. And we got on this coal barge and started playing around in the coal. And my poor mom got desperate. She didn't know where we were. She was asking neighbors all over the neighborhood where we were. And finally they said, well, we saw two boys walking toward the river. Well, she kind of panicked there a little bit too as well. And so she finally found us, and we were with coal black on our heads and so on and so forth. So finally, she never would hit me, never spanked me. But when I knew I did something wrong, I tried to appease her, you know. She would just gently shove me away, and that hurt me more than if she spanked me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then I remember too, years later when I was able to swim, a group of us used to get on the Hudson River, and where they had all the docks over there, they had areas where all these big planks were almost like a swimming pool there. So, and then there was like a boardwalk where we used to run down and jump and slide and dive into the pool. And one time I slipped and hit my head on the big pilings, and the guys jumped in and grabbed me and pulled me out too there because I got a little dazed. But yeah.
Stay away from swimming pools now.
Yeah. So anyhow, and one other crazy thing that I think about is when my dad had bought me a bicycle, it didn't have any brakes. So I'd have to climb on to the one side on the pedal and drag my foot in order to stop. So, but anyhow, we used to ride around the neighborhood, and there was this one older, well, they're older. He may not finish as old as I thought. but he had a cherry tree. Oh, that enticed us.
I'm sure.
So we checked that one out. We said, we'll come back later and we'll get ourselves some cherries. Well, went back and I was going to be lifted up into the tree to get the cherries out, and I noticed something different about the tree. Well, it was like he put some wire around the base. And so anyhow, he was waiting for us. And so here I was up in the tree, hanging on a limb, picking cherries. And next thing I know, he come by there with a rubber hose and start beating me on the legs.
Uh-oh.
And then when I dropped off, I started running, jumped on the bike, and away we went.
That's great.
So anyhow, yeah, we did a lot of crazy things, and then we moved from I think from Harriet. I think my mom, excuse me. I think my mom and dad had separated, and we moved over on Sawmill River Road.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were growing up there, when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, and I used to have this friend, his mom and dad had a candy store, and we used to go in there, buy a bag of potato chips for 5 cents, and they had the pinball machines. We used to play pinballs and eat potato chips and drink sodas, and his name was Tony Macedo. But anyhow, that was one of my friends. And then this other Frank Campogna. We used to go to Mount Vernon, and matter of fact, I still have my roller skates, shoe skates, that are back when we used to be 14 years old, and we used to go roller skating in Mount Vernon Arena. We take the trolley car and go out to Mount Vernon to the skating rink. I used to dance on skates, and pretty good. One pills for racing, pins. Yeah.
Excellent.
So,
You had one heck of a childhood.
yeah.
That's great.
So that pretty much was that, except when I went into the Army then from New Jersey. What?
Didn't you work at a golf course then?
Oh, yeah. When I was 13, I used to caddy at Quick Ridge Golf Course.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and that was a private course owned by Jewish people. And so there was a bus used to come at about 7:30 in the morning. They'd pick us up and we'd go there, and they used to pay us $1 for 18 holes. And they carried everything with the kitchen sink in those bags. And they, at the 9th hole, depends on who we were lucky to get. If they were generous enough, there was a hot dog stand. They said, go get something to eat, you know. And then on Mondays, it was Caddy's Day. So whoever we caddied for on Sunday, we'd ask them permission to use their clubs. And the caddy master would then have a list of all the people that were going to give us the clubs for the day.
That was nice.
Yeah, that was great. So I did that for probably a couple of years. And then after that,
Did you know somebody named Elizabeth Jacobs when you were growing up on the south side of Yonkers? Did you know Elizabeth Jacobs?
Jacob's name was familiar. Matter of fact, my grandfather's name was Odisha Jacob.
Odisha Jacob?
And yeah, and my uncle was Sam Jacob. But there used to be a very prominent man by the name of David Jacobs, I believe it was. A very wealthy man.
That's
Very wealthy.
that's my uncle and my cousin.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
fifth
He
is,
was very influential back then.
yes.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
didn't know if he was in real estate or what he was.
real estate, alcohol sales. He owned the liquor store on Valentine and Broadway.
Oh, what, sweetie? Oh, I thought you had a question.
We were actually supposed to interview his daughter yesterday, and she wasn't feeling well. So we'll interview her next week, hopefully. So
I'll be,
yeah, that's my family. And so go ahead, Michael. Go ahead and ask your next question.
Okay, sure. So, what did you do, George, once you graduated from Saunders High School?
after I didn't graduate, that's
Oh,
another,
oh, okay.
because we left in May.
Mhm.
And I thought that at that time, of course, I didn't think about graduating or getting a diploma. So years later, when we were living in New Jersey, I was a meat cutter. I was a apprentice butcher. And so I decided to take a course through the mail, International Correspondence School was the name of it. And so I did all of these lessons because I wanted to try to be meat inspector for the valley. And so after all was said and done, they came back and said, "Well, we see you're fitted for the railroad." I don't want anything to do with the railroad, you know. So that money went down the drain. So I went back to junior college at night to get my diploma for the high school diploma, which I got.
Great.
So
Good for you.
then after that, when I was went into the army,
Mhm.
and I was very fortunate there. But I was went into Camp Pickett, Virginia, as a medic. I guess because I was a meat cutter, they put me in the hospital unit, medical unit. So anyhow, we went there through basic training, live fire under, and as though we were going to be out on a battalion field, you know, helping the wounded and so on. But then from there, we shipped out out of New York, Camp Shanks, I think, out of out of New York. Yeah, I was inducted in Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So they shipped us over to England and to a hospital unit over in England, in a town called Warrington, outside of Warrington. And it was just a beautiful area out there, about 3 miles from Warrington, that the hospital unit was on acreage of and there was a pasture in the back with cows and everything. Very beautiful.
Good.
And I was lucky to be there for 2 years. And it was like being on vacation in a sense. But I worked in different areas of the hospital, circulated for major surgeries and assisted in some minor surgeries, cystoscopies and circumcisions and stuff like that, minor stuff. But for the most part, the majors, the doctors, they used to say, what you kids are doing, the interns in regular life would they'd give their soul to, you know. So we were pretty lucky. So I was also a mess sergeant. And I remember when we first got there, it was raining. and Captain Van Dyke was his name. He had us all lined up, standing in the rain. And he says, "You guys are like pennies from heaven," he said. And so he says, "So who wants to be the volunteers colonel chauffeur?" And some guys raised their hand right away, and they said, "Oh, okay, come on over there and chauffeur that wheelbarrow with coal over there." It is. So this buddy of mine, Dominic, he was from New York, and he and I got to be buddies, and so we didn't raise our hand at all. We just kept it cool. So at the end of all of it, this colonel, they had already been in Reykjavik, Iceland, when President Roosevelt was saying, "No American boy will put foot on foreign soil," and they were already over there. But they came. They're the ones that came to our unit, and what they call first three graders, sergeants, staff sergeants, with the rocker, and first sergeants and all, had their own dining room. So fortunately enough, Dominic and I were selected to serve them. So they had white tablecloths and everything in their barracks there, or dining room we'd set up for them. And we'd have to go to the mess hall and get the food and bring it on over to them and serve them. And we got paid for it.
Good.
Yeah, we got paid for it. And our top sergeant, first sergeant, I later on found out after we moved to California, he was from Fresno. But anyhow, anytime we wanted to pass or whatever, they'd never have any problems with it. And this other young guy by the name of Leslie Steele, he ran the PX. So we became buddies. Anytime he wanted anything, he'd come into the dining room and we'd feed him whatever he wanted. Anytime I wanted anything, I'd go to the PX to get whatever I wanted. So he and I both, when we left England, we went to France, to Compiègne. And we were there for 6 months prior to being shipped home. But we would go over to Paris. And I remember my Uncle Sam, he used to play the harmonica. And they had what they call a chromatic harmonica that pushed the button on the side. But anyhow, I saw that. We were, Les and I went out there. This little French woman owned this shop. And I spotted this harmonica in the window there. So she came out and she said, "You come in, you come in." You know, I says, "Well, no, we're going to go to the main PX." "Oh, you go PX, you come back, you come back." And so anyhow, I wound up getting that harmonica, I think, for a couple of candy bars and a bar of soap and pair of stockings, silk stockings, which they couldn't get.
Right.
And also we did a little black marketing with cigarettes too. We used to get $20 for a carton of cigarettes at the bar, at some of those bars. So some of these young guys that well, there was one guy. He was did a lot of painting and everything in unit, and he used to drink. He'd drink pure alcohol with grapefruit juice or whatever he could get. So anyhow, they put a moratorium on how much money we could send home. So we used to get a hold of, I did anyhow, Parker was his name. And I'd give him a few dollars and go to the post office, send my mother a cashier's check. So by the time I got out of the Army, when I was 21, I had $3,800 saved already.
Good for you.
And that's what bought my first car,
Good for you.
a 1939 Dodge. Yeah. So anyhow, he did a lot of crazy things, did a lot of things, worked in Central Supply, and they did autoclaving for the whole hospital unit. We sterilized everything. Even the needles that they used to inject in, we take and take the burrs off of that with a grindstone and make Vaseline gauze and talk about Vaseline. We turned our camp into a German prison camp prior to going to France. And I remember this colonel, he was in a tank unit, badly burned. And they had to put him in a bathtub in saline solution just to wash the dead skin off his body as he breathed. But after several months, he had so determination to want to get up and walk. And he couldn't, of course, but for the most part, we used to autoclave a lot of Vaseline in even little jars or plastic, metal containers, whatever we could get, and put a gauze in there and put the Vaseline and sterilize it. And that's what they used for wrapping him when they needed to. So that was an experience there. And then when we went to France, prior to going to France, what came to mind was this Corporal Kowalski that was under me. And I used to have him go to the warehouses to pick up fruits, vegetables, or whatever we needed for the unit. And I got in touch with this Frenchman that had a ice cream parlor, or he made ice cream. So I remember one time I told him, I said, I want so many gallons of that. And what I would do, I'd send him number 10 containers of peaches or whatever, things they couldn't get. And I remember this warrant officer, little skinny little guy, Jewish Finkelstein. I remember he said, "Where are you getting all this stuff?" I said, "Why, don't you like it?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Don't ask any questions." And he used to make down at his bakery. He used to make donuts for me that I bring back to camp. Kowalski did, and they'd bring when we had these German prisoners. Fritz was his name. He was a sergeant in the German army, and they salute him, and he used to do the same for me. Because at one point I made up all the menus for the hospital unit, whether they were bland diets or whatever the diets had to be for the nurses and doctors, or separate from the detachment. So he used to get extra cases of eggs and everything else for me. And he used to let's see, there were German prisoners that worked in these warehouses to give the supplies out. And anyhow, yeah, so Fritz, he'd come in and salute me first thing in the morning, ask me what I wanted for breakfast, and he'd get it, serve me. And I had it made, and I never saw any real war.
Thank God.
Mhm.
So yeah, well, that's the reason why I'm still here, I guess.
Yeah. It wasn't meant to be.
So anyhow, other than that, I guess that pretty much winds it up, I think. Well,
Hey, Michael.
whatever questions you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ruth, did you want to ask some of the Assyrian cultural identity questions?
Yes.
Yep.
So, tell me about your family's background, where they emigrated from.
Yeah, they came from Urmia, and I think my father was Drew Pasha,
Jewel Pasha.
and my mom and dad were my mom and grandfather came from Urmia. There was another name for that. I forget it right now.
Are they Edishai?
I'm sorry.
Edishai? Maybe Edishai?
Shy?
Edishai. A-R.
Oh, Ed the Shy. No,
Okay.
no. They were from Jewel Pasha.
Jewel Pasha.
Yeah,
My dad's side's Jewel Pasha.
yeah. Well, we're probably related, possibly.
We probably are, I have to tell you. We're
Our
learning more
our
people.
grandparents went into the same bridge, huh?
Jennifer, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Poppy, your father was from a different town though. Started with a D.
Dijala?
The judge,
Yeah.
the judge, is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yes.
Boy, you're really stretching my memory.
I think, is that closer to Turkey? Because I think that was what we figured out on Ancestry.
I think, I think he was part Armenian. Yeah, he was a painter by trade, and the only one that allowed him to paint his home was the sugar heir, Spreckles. And yeah, he used to paint his home, and he was very meticulous when it came to that. But he also had a pretty mean streak. So yeah, I can remember. I can remember he used to make his own wine down in the cellar, and with gunny sacks full of grapes, and he'd stomp on them in the bathtub, and but when he drank, he became impossible, and there was many a nights that I don't know if you want to hear all of this or not.
It's up to you. I do want to ask you some more questions about when they came over. Do you know what year they migrated to the United States?
I think my mom was 9 years old, and she was born in 1908.
Okay.
March 25th, March 1908.
I actually found their immigration record. She was actually 3, which goes against what we always heard growing up from her.
Yeah.
So I did find out that she had come over when she was only 3, and she had, I believe, measles. So they were in quarantine for a while before they could get off the ship. And she came over with just her mother. So her father came over first.
Okay. And they're the family from Jilpashan?
Yes.
Okay. And so what year would that be?
1911.
1911. Okay, so before the war, they came over, which
Yeah.
is a good thing because Jilpashan was hit very badly, one of the worst. So I'm glad that she got here earlier. And so growing up in Yonkers, did you attend a particular church?
St. John's
And
down to Getty Square.
did you have an Assyrian minister at the time?
Somewhat?
Did you have an Assyrian minister?
No.
Okay.
His name was Reverend Newell.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah,
I know about him.
and and my mom was a Sunday school teacher for a while. Yeah, so that's where we grew up, in the Episcopal Church of St. John's Episcopal.
And did you speak Assyrian at home?
Very little, very little.
Okay.
Even today, you know, I know as the years went by, I really didn't associate with a lot of Syrian people until I got to Turlock. And then some of my best buddies were all Assyrian, and one of them, his name was Joe Yonan, by the way, was my best man.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry.
Shadon
Okay.
was her first name,
Okay.
Joe's mother's name. And yeah.
And do you ever eat Assyrian foods when you were a kid?
Oh, Mom used to make dolma all the time. Or shudwa.
Shudwa.
Yeah.
And do you get to eat it now or no?
No, well, every once in a while, there's friends of ours. Matter of fact, Jack just left here a little while ago. His wife, Barbara, she was an Assyrian, he's Armenian, and she makes dolma.
Okay.
And she'll make the grape leaf dolma and bring some over every once in a while.
Does she give you mesta for it?
No,
No.
that was good. Yeah, my mom used to, when we were in New Jersey, my mom used to make all of that because we had a cow, and we'd have our own mesta and butter and make our own, churn our own butter, and yeah.
It's great. Mesta, Michael, is yogurt. So they make
Yeah,
that covers the stuffed grape leaves.
yeah,
Um,
very
let's see.
good.
We have an annual Assyrian food festival here in San Jose, and sometimes I've been able to bring Poppy some food.
That's great.
He lives a few hours from me, so we've done it a couple of times.
And
Yeah.
do you ever, when you were a child, did you ever, your family participate at the Assyrian Club at all, at the association?
Not that I can remember.
Okay.
No, I don't think my father was much of a joiner,
Okay.
you know.
I understand that. And do you know why your family migrated to the United States?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
They all came through Ellis Island, and who knows, my name may not be Porhat. It may be Porhat. It could have been Porhat or Hut, you know. But when you get to Ellis Island, he probably couldn't speak that guy, so he says, "Your name is John Sargis Porhat."
Right.
So that's the name we got.
So that's where the Sargis comes in. So my family's also connected to Isha Sargis. I now know that. She's a cousin. We have cousins who are Sargises. And let's see. Did you ever wish that you could go back to Urmia to see it?
No, never had a desire.
How come?
Oh, I never had the money. for one thing, but it never got into my head about wanting to see where my parents came from. I never thought about stuff like that.
When you moved from Yonkers to New Jersey, were there other Assyrians around?
Well, we were out there in the country, you know, so the other Syrians was just Uncle Alec, and his wife was German, and
Uncle Alec's last name?
Baba,
Bama.
B-A-B-A.
Okay. And so I think it's interesting that you started off in Yonkers in an Assyrian enclave and then ended up in Modesto and Turlock, of all places, with the greatest Assyrian population out there.
Yes, well, this doctor, I think his name was Dr. David, went to Chicago, and he brought a lot of people from Chicago to Turlock. You have that history?
I do.
See?
I think I might be connected to
So
them.
was I correct in his Dr. David? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I never met him or anything, but I heard of him.
Yeah, yeah. And so is there any tradition that you may have had at home as a child that was an Assyrian tradition other than the food that you can think of?
Not really.
Okay. And are there any other family stories that you may have heard from your grandparents, from your parents, about life in Iran and Urmia?
The only thing I remember hearing was my grandfather was a policeman in Russia. And, but other than that, when he came to the United States, I think they wound up in Chicago first. And he worked as a janitor in theaters.
Okay.
And so other than that, you know, really didn't.
Okay. Is there anything that we didn't ask you that you would like to tell us about yourself? Or I'm wondering, even in your home, if you have any symbols that are Assyrian, like if I walked into your house, would I be able to know that you are Assyrian?
Not with my wife. She's an interior designer, and Jennifer can tell you how she puts everything together very beautifully. And so right now she's down on her knees because she put molding in, and she's filling in all the cracks and stuff like that. She's very handy.
Yeah. Good.
Particularly at my age, because I can't do anything anymore. And I can't get down on my knees. I never get up again.
Poppy, I was thinking that maybe you could tell Ruth and Michael a little bit more about your grandfather, and then how, you know, I think he lived with you for a period of time, because he was the one who came over first. So
Yeah.
maybe you remember about him.
Yeah, he back in Yonkers, he lived across the street from us in an apartment, and but then when we moved to New Jersey, he moved with us, and he stayed with us, and of course he was retired. He didn't work, and I could still remember him sitting by the stove. We used to have a wood stove, and he'd have a chair right at the end, and he'd always sit there, and he'd have he'd make his own cigarettes, or I made them for him. The bugler, and put it in the paper, and they had the machine that rolled the cigarettes, and they had a Prince Albert can that they used to save to put the cigarettes in. So, yeah, and other than that, and I remember we had this big pig, and it used to follow him around like a dog, and he'd go out to the 14 acres. We had a big well back there, and he used to go back there and have a brush and get some water and wash all the pig down, and that was his buddy. So yeah.
Question I didn't ask. I actually know the answer, but you mentioned your younger brother who passed away when he was young. And
Yeah.
can you tell us where he was laid to rest? Do you know?
Well, Jennifer has all that information. She went back there and she got that and saw his grave and my grandfather's. Actually, they didn't have markers. They had the rings with the name on it, didn't they, Jenny?
Yeah, I think that neither grave was marked. We were just given a map and told where they were laid to rest. So your brother is buried in Oakland Cemetery, which I believe is also where your father is buried. And your grandfather
St. Joseph's.
is, yeah, he's in the Catholic cemetery because of your aunt, right? She was Catholic. Your aunt, Uncle Sam's wife, right? Weren't they? They were Catholic, which is why your grandfather's buried in the Catholic cemetery and not with your brother.
Uncle Sam's wife.
Yeah, Margaret. She was Catholic.
Oh, that's my mother.
No,
Sammy's her brother.
Right, but his wife was also Margaret, and she was Irish Catholic.
Oh yeah, we called her Peggy.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's why your grandfather ended up living with them at the end of his life.
Okay.
And he was buried at the Catholic cemetery.
Well,
'Cause
then,
she was Catholic.
yeah, Sam probably buried her there.
Yeah,
Buried him there
right.
because I didn't know Peggy was buried there because she had moved back to Florida with her daughter,
Yeah, I don't know where Peggy's buried. I'm talking about your
Okay.
grandfather,
with Ginny.
Jacob
Okay.
Ishu.
Yeah.
He's there.
Well,
So
we didn't know if it was Odisha Jacobs or Jacob Odisha.
Well, they used to flip the names. That's why. And
Yeah.
that.
And so what I do know from Poppy's family, so his grandfather is the one who came over first, and then his wife followed with my grandpa's mother, Margaret. So she was 3. It was actually in July 1912 they came over, and then they went to Chicago. And in Chicago, her mother died when she was 9 years old. So that's
No.
yeah.
Okay.
And in the meantime, though, she had their second child, Samuel, in I think 1914. So they had just the 2 surviving children, my grandpa's mother and then the brother Sam. And then Sam had 4 kids, and Margaret had my grandpa and the 2 others, the daughter and the son that died.
Okay.
So
And
there were
came to Yonkers after Chicago.
right,
Okay.
yeah. So they were briefly in Michigan, and then came over to Yonkers. So they were, I believe, in Yonkers by 1918, 1919, because she was married. Let's see, Nana was married off at 12 years old in 1920, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were in Yonkers by then, which is when she was married to his.
Yeah, that was one of those put-up jobs because my grandfather couldn't take care of both my mom and her and my Uncle Sam. So there was an agreement with this Mrs. I think her name was Tamarez, and she used to make arrangements for weddings and stuff like that. And so she hooked her up with my father, and he could have probably been in his 30s or 40s already. And yeah, and he died, I think, in 1939.
Okay. And just review for me one more time the family names.
Start with your grandfather, Poppy.
Just review your family names one more time for me.
Okay, Jacob Odisha. Oh, Odisha Jacob. Either or. And Who else now?
And then he had your mother and your uncle, which they actually used the name Jacob,
Yeah, Margaret Jacob and
Uh-huh.
Sam Jacob.
right? And then your father,
Who knows? Sargis, John Sargis, oh, Sargis Porhat.
right? He went by John Sargis Porhat.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if he went by John, but I think he went more with Sargis.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The census records have him as John Sargis Porhat. Just so whatever he went by, I don't know, but that was his legal name, I think.
Well, I thank you, and I hope that I'm be able to meet you. I'll be coming out to California hopefully one day soon. I'm working on a genocide exhibit at Stanislaus. So I
Oh,
meet you. And Jennifer, I have cousins in San Jose. You would love my cousin, Nancy. And so we'll have to all connect. She's a Jacobs, Nancy Jacobs. And so her father was Dave Jacobs' brother.
yeah.
Dave Jacobs that you were talking about, Poppy from Yonkers.
Yeah, I never met him.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of him.
Yeah. His
First time
brother's
as a
children
kid.
out in California. One of his brothers. So I look forward to it. And thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful.
Well, I appreciate your diligence here. And Michael, any more questions?
No, that's all for now. Thank you very much. Yeah, you told a lot of really good stories.
Well, great. Yeah, I probably have more, but I'm not going to relate them.
Yeah.
We'll keep it appropriate.
Alex, you are the master.
Yeah,
Some of the crazy things I've done.
yeah.
Terrific.
Maybe, when we're not recording, you can tell us.
Thank you.
So it's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you,
Thank
Jennifer.
you, Jenny.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ruth. Love you, Pop.
Okay.